Welcome, Lisa. It's so nice to see your beautiful face.
Oh, it's so nice to be here and see your beautiful face. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, I'm so excited. We've been talking about having you on my podcast again because you were on it in the early years. And both of us have kind of refined our focus in the last 2, 3 years. And I think that you're perfect for this season of energy awareness because who doesn't need more energy,
Exactly. Especially now.
especially now? And you're kind of recovering from a little cold as well.
Yeah, I've done a lot of traveling lately, so between the flying and the weather back east and everything, I caught a cold, but I'm good. I'm all good.
You're
I'm ready
good.
to
Okay. Well, one of the topics I've been leaning into and really interested in is how can I refine my streamlining as an entrepreneur, and particularly given that my way of communicating or promoting is through podcasting. And you've really refined the art of understanding what technologies and tools to use to be a podcaster who can still enjoy the creative part without getting lost in the details of, I would say, production
go.
and planning. So maybe you could share where you're at, maybe a tiny bit of history, how you came into this space.
Sure, absolutely. I came into the whole content creation space as a food blogger and producing food videos. So I have that production experience of having multiple cameras and, trying to put together a run of show and producing content weekly. During the pandemic, that all came to a halt because I had no one to give my food to or to test recipes. I couldn't get to the store. So I just turned my energy over to all my knowledge being given to women over 50 who were looking to become content creators themselves or start a video podcast or just get their brand or their message out. So I just have done a deep dive into that and helping those women, become more visible online. And I love it. My background is in production in on camera and off. So this is my wheelhouse. And this is like my third act, I should say, not not even my second. So yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Yeah, speaking of third act, we had a series called The Second Act, and you were on my podcast for that. And it was for sure so inspiring. Um, so tell me a little bit about your understanding of the space where women are now pivoting, like myself, women over 40, women over 50, and finding that there's still plenty of opportunities to thrive. It's not
Yeah.
what people thought 40, 50 years ago.
It's not like when my grandmother, was at this age. We have as women over a certain age, 40, 50, whatever, we have all this life experience. And I just don't like seeing it going to waste. So that's why I encourage people, spread the knowledge. Don't let it just, go dormant somewhere and get your message out there. And now we have so many tools. With the AI for one to help us as an assistant, not to do all the work for you. But there's so many tools right now to allow you to get your message out. And I'm like, why not take advantage of it? It's there, so just do it. So that I'm on a mission to, get women to just kind of rise up and spread their message and use these tools. And you can learn as much as you want or as little as you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get perfection out of the way. It could be as simple as grabbing your cell phone. And as long as people can see you and hear you and your message is good and tight, that's all that matters. So, let go of all of I don't have this equipment. I don't have this. I don't have, just turn on the, turn on your phone, your video on your phone and get started and have your thoughts collected. So,
And even to have your thoughts collected, there are tools for that. I'm trying to remember the name of the tools. It'll come to me in a moment. But scripts, AI scripts, intelligent ways to pause and deliver your ideas, right?
yeah, definitely. So I have two podcasts. One that I co-host with two friends of mine that I met through actually a software I use called Ecamm that allows you to go live and basically do, I call it like a live television show from your computer, because you can bring in videos, you can bring in lower thirds, like in the news, you see people's names pop up. And so we met at a convention last year and hit it off and decided to do a podcast together. And so I have that, and I have my own personal podcast. And so I deal with a lot of the what's called the run of show, of knowing what's coming next, how the show's going to run, what information I'm trying to put out so the audience can, enjoy and learn something along the way. So it it involves a lot of organization. And I'm a big user of Notion. I love Notion. You can customize it however you want, however your brain works. And I teach that. And I like that you can customize it, because maybe my way I can show you, but then you can tweak it and look at it a different way. Maybe somebody likes Kanban and somebody else likes database, and so it gives you that freedom. But uh, what you want to do when you are trying to do all of this content is really have your thoughts organized, so you don't turn on the camera and you're like, well, let's see, what am I going to talk about today? Okay. Oh, I forgot that. At least you have this guideline to, keep yourself moving, keep yourself going. So I think that's really important to learn that, but not get overwhelmed by the various products that are out there to help you, because there's a lot of AI out there and you get lost in the weeds of trying to learn things, and then you're not producing content. So it's that balance of knowing what's available, knowing what you need to make it work with how your brain works and how you like to organize things. So
Absolutely. And you mentioned the word organization, and that's so inherently part of any business, but it's also inherently part of any life. So lately, when I've been talking about energy awareness and how do we use AI tools, I share that this might be applicable to your life. You could be retired and still use these technologies, or you could be in the thick of it as a busy mom working in a corporation and trying to juggle it all. And then there's people like ourselves are pivoting or evolving as entrepreneurs, or you're an established entrepreneur. You may not necessarily have to go through those learning curves because there's so lot to organize, right?
yeah, there's a lot to organize, and I use it both in my personal life and my, especially for travel, just to keep everything organized, and I can just go right to what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a file or looking for an email, whatever. And so I think it's important to remember the AI, and I think I already said this, is simply your assistant. It's not trying to take over or do all the work for you, or you shouldn't just take whatever results it gives you and just use it. You have to be mindful about it. And going back to what you're teaching, there's a certain level of mindfulness that has to be activated when you're using it. So,
Yeah. Um, Along those lines, when you said we have to train it, think of it as an assistant, um, there is this fear among many, I believe, that what is it really? Maybe they haven't really engaged with it, or what will it do or not do effectively? One being, will it authentically represent my voice? And whether it's Notion, which is
yeah.
a tool that you can use for organization, or any
Yeah.
of those tools, there
Right.
is a little bit of a relationship. It's like having maybe an intern in your room and you just say, go at it. And they're like, but I don't know what you do.
There's a certain amount of training, because if you let it run wild, run amok, it I'm sure some people have heard this, the garbage in, garbage out. So if you just give it something very basic and very, not full of information about what you're trying to get out of it, you're going to get something basic. You're going to get garbage. You're going to get something that doesn't sound like you, doesn't have your voice. So there's a learning curve of training it so it knows who you are. It knows what your brand is. It knows what your life is, and then it can produce the things you want. And then you take that and you massage that so it really sounds like you. So it's a starting point to me. And
Yeah.
it's an ideation tool also, because I like to feed it all of this information. It gives me back a result. Then I tweak it and feed it back to it. So there's this back and forth that's going on. And I think that's where the magic is, that you don't just, it's like that whole thing concept. And, as a coach, the, uh, the 7 layers deep of asking why. So you ask the client, why do you want to do blah, 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 blah? And they answer. And that first answer, those first few answers are surface. Then you ask them why again, and then they give you another answer and it goes a little bit deeper. And you keep asking why till finally by the fifth or seventh, you get the true answer. So I equate those two things with how you would use AI as an assistant. Don't take that first result
Yeah.
because that's just surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for, I believe, probably all AI type of technologies. For those who are somewhat novice to it, there's the large language models. Those are the typical type of AI tools that help you with the copy that you're writing or enhancing the copy. And there's different levels of kind of expertise among those type of tools. And then there are tools that are even further ahead in terms of organization, like Notion. And then there's even other ones that we will probably discuss on this call. But even Ecamm has built-in AI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It has a little bit of it going on. I'm going to circle back to you were talking about the levels and Notebook LM, which is kind of flying under the radar, I think, right now. I mean, people are talking about it and doing videos about it, but it's a really interesting model to use because not only can you bring in different, videos. You can bring in different texts. You can do the actual thing through Gemini so you can actually ask questions. But then now they have this podcasting component where it will basically come up with a short podcast with only there's two hosts. It's a male and female. You can't change the voices. But this podcast show comes out of all of this information you fed to it. And it has so many use cases for education. Like if someone's trying to learn a very big tome of a book, to learn some difficult uh, concept or topic that they're trying to learn, you can feed in the book and then ask it questions. So I find it interesting for like I said, for education, everybody has a different learning style. So to have this way to massage it and to maneuver it so you can understand what you're trying to get out of it and learn, or, as a content creator, to use it to throw all these ideas in so you can get the information and then put your thoughts, experiences, and tone into that message. And then just listening to it as a podcast. Another use case is, say you've created a workshop or you've created something, feed it into there and ask it to be honest about it, as honest as a AI can be, I guess, but to kind of, get in the weeds with it and listen back to what they're saying. It's almost like having that, focus group in a way, which is kind of interesting. So with all these tools, as you go deeper into them in the use cases, I think it's fascinating, yet scary, but fascinating. So
Yeah, well, and I definitely find it fascinating because going back to how do you bring in some efficiency into your life for those who are maybe not that aware, just even the task of doing podcast production is very, very involved. And if I took away all the tools that I've been more and more utilizing, I would have left the podcasting world because it is hard. There's apparently, I just read it, I'll put it in my show notes, but only 14% of active podcast participants go beyond episode 200.
yeah, well, actually, episode 10 is really the starting point.
Yeah, the
If you
starting
get
point.
past 10, yeah, if you get past 10 episodes,
Yeah.
you're in a higher percentage of people that are doing it. And then as you move along, what you were just saying, it dwindles. Yes, you can look at the stats and there's a ton of podcasts, but not as many that are consistent. And I don't know what the numbers off the top of my head, but during the pandemic, they exploded because everybody was home. It's like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. But then when you realize all the little things you have to do to make it come into fruition, from figuring out, well, first setting it up, getting it out there, getting it on Apple Music, figuring out what your cover is, figuring out what topic you're going to be talking about, finding your guests. Is it a solo show? Is it a co-hosted show? What tools am I going to use? Am I doing a video podcast, or am I doing it old school audio, or am I doing both? It goes on and on and on. And I find when I work with clients and they come to me and they're like, I want to do a podcast. I'm like, great, but just know, and give them the list. Just know that this is what it takes. And then once you're done with it, now you've got to put it out there so people will find it and listen to it. So there's marketing and content creation. And so it's not for the faint of heart, honestly, if you're going to do it the right way. But even if you want to do it for hobby, I say do it, because I don't know, there's something rewarding. The conversations are rewarding. The knowledge, you're constantly learning, which, after a certain age, we need to keep doing to keep this right. So, I think it's a great thing, whether, again, if you're going to just go all in, or if you just want to do it as a side gig, that I just enjoy this.
Well, and that's been true for me. The element of being able to connect with the audience through podcasting. There are different ways. One could do a live Q&A or a blog. And while there's a little element of that I do sometimes, conversations is where I've really felt my creativity spark. And but I would feel really frustrated if these tools didn't exist, which would streamline the processes, because there's just so much, like you said, there's a long list of things you have to do, and it's not for the faint of the heart.
No,
Because
it's not.
like even details, like I'm constantly learning about improving my podcast, and so I have multiple spreadsheets. As you know, I'm the spreadsheet queen, and I really love spreadsheets or ways to keep things organized. And one of the things I have is SEO title,
Mhm.
and the 5 elements of how I will make my title SEO strong. And for any one podcast, I come up with at least half a dozen titles before I nail down on one. But now, due to the beauty of Descript, which is another AI video production tool or audio, it will give you SEO strong titles.
Right. And then if you're putting them on, if you're doing a video podcast, let's say, and you put it on YouTube, you can do what's called A/B testing. So you can do one title and another second title and put it out there and see what's performing better. So I mean, that's next level of, starting to get into the weeds of looking at your back end and figuring that out. But there are, you can make this as simple as you want, or you can get in there and do it. And I say start simple, don't overwhelm yourself, because if you do, you won't continue, and
Yeah.
you'll,
And going back to the original point, this is really meaning these technologies are there not to stifle us, although it can happen to even like myself, but to enhance our ability to be a thriving entrepreneur or thriving parent or thriving whatever it is that you want to do, and focus on your why and your creativity. So maybe let's go back to Notion now, because I'm not aware if the audience truly can appreciate the tool without knowing a little bit about the context and how you've been using it.
so the context that I've been using it, like I said, has been for producing shows, and personal, but for producing shows most like. And so I have, if say I have an episode I've just done, I have everything I need to know within one section of Notion about that specific episode, about the person that is my guest. I have their bio. I have written out all the links of how to get to the recorded, video or audio. So why I do that, because when I found back in the day when I was doing food blogging or in food videos, I needed to find a video. I needed to find something, and it was in a file somewhere in Google, or it was, it's all over the place. So if you're trying to save time and streamline, which we were talking about, you want to have everything condensed. You want to know where everything is. So just literally at a press of a button, you go to that section and all the answers are there. And it does save a ton of time, because you could waste 5 minutes looking for a file. And if you haven't been labeling your files in a certain way, which that's a whole other thing. Like there's so many things you can do to make your life easier, but if you haven't labeled your file and then now you're searching for it and you need it because you need a clip for whatever, I find Notion just allows me to put everything in one spot, and it has AI in there. So if I have a quick question, I can ask a question as I would do in Chat GPT. I don't know if they're using 4.0 now in there. When they first started it was 3.5, but I'm sure it's up. But you can use that. Everything's right in there. That's what I like. It's all focused. So, there's other tools. There's ClickUp. There's good old Trello back in the day, which I used to like. But there's all kinds of ways to gather your information. And Notion's not the only way. I would say find what works for you and stick with that, and then go deeper into that.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, there are comparable or similar tools. Some I've used in the past as well. And I just love having everything in one place. This is why I'm on a mission to dive deeper into Notion as well. Now, the other tool that you and I have talked about for almost 2 years now, I keep saying, I'm almost there. I will use it. Might have to be even today because I'm sort of in a little bit of a situation where I recorded my master class and didn't actually record it. So I had a
Yeah.
live audience, and that little button called record didn't get pressed.
Wait, so you feel better? I have a sign that says press record just to remind myself, just in case, because you're fiddling with, people can't see my setup, but I've got the, audio thing here and my camera's there and, the screen over here. And so it's very easy to, don't feel bad. It's very easy to do that.
I
It's a
can't
common
believe
thing.
I did
Yeah, let it go. I'm sad that it happened, but it's a common thing.
Well, I felt embarrassed, but I told my audience that, okay, this will be on replay. So today I'm all dressed up because I'm going to re-record my slides. And I would like to, I've been saying this for months, but I feel like Ecamm might actually help me because I mentioned a specific challenge, which is the technologies. I won't even get into what I was using, but they're like one is on one laptop and the other one's not, another one's here. Then I've got my script over there. It gets overwhelming because the last thing you want to see when you're listening to somebody with engagement, even if it's not full screen on them, is them looking away every few seconds.
Right, right. It's distracting. Yeah.
So tell
And
me
yeah,
how we can use Ecamm and
yeah.
with, yeah, okay,
I'm sorry, you came with, just so
with AI.
with AI. Oh, okay. So yes, I have been trying to get you to use Ecamm for for a while now. The beauty of Ecamm, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying about AI, you can make it as simple as you want, or you can make it as, fancy and complicated as you want. If you're just trying to do a simple workshop or do a simple, you make up level your Zoom calls for business, no matter, I'm not talking about being a content creator. I just mean, you know, you have Zoom calls you have to do all the time. Uh, you can bring yourself in, you can create what I call like a run of show, and simply by a press of a button, all of a sudden bring your slides in, bring you with your slides in. A lot of the things you see a lot when you look at different workshops and everything. And so it does allow you to streamline everything because everything's already, you've created this, again, run of show or these scenes. And so you're just going through whatever your workshop or whatever it is you're teaching or meeting, you're just going through it and it's right there. Um, it'll allow you to scoot what you're doing over to Descript so you can edit. So that's streamlining because now it will actually send the file directly over there. Now you're into editing mode, which is beautiful. Instead of downloading it yourself and then getting it into whatever you're using, CapCut, Premiere Pro, Final Cut, whatever it is. Um, they haven't expanded AI so much within, that's something that's coming within the actual thing. But what it allows you to do is to have this master video or just audio podcast. You could just record that or meeting or whatever, and then take that and then manipulate it within AI. I think it's a great tool. I just got back from an event that they had in back east near Boston. And one of the most wonderful things, aside from the tool, is the community. I've never seen a community like this before. I have never seen people be so helpful and kind and considerate. So it's just a different software company, and that's part of the reason I'm drawn to it because I know if I have a question and I have to ask something, nobody's going to poo-poo it or be, rude about it. Like, you don't know that, really? That energy. So there's a kind, gentle energy there, along with a really good product that can, like I said, up level your Zoom calls. Or if you are teaching something, the other podcasts I did, we just had a musician on and he played live for us and he uses Ecamm and he does this very cool thing where there's three different little boxes. You see him, you see his finger, and you see him on the guitar. Ecamm allows him to do that. It's beyond, it's a triple screen, it's beyond a split screen. It's like, three things. So it's wherever your imagination wants to take you. You can make it, again, as simple as you want or more complex, but it just allows you to get your message out there in a very clear, uh, beautiful way, I think.
And even if you were teaching, say, something in cooking, I think you could have a different camera just
Oh, yeah,
at a
absolutely.
angle.
Yeah, and as you get more complicated with it, there's other tools you can bring in that there's a pedal you can press that will change the scene. It's like like a sewing machine pedal, you know what I mean? And so you could be talking, and I could literally right now, if I was in Cam and I had the pedal, I could just use my foot and change it to the next scene or change it to a video coming in. So again, as complicated or as easy as you want. You can use your iPhone and use Ecamm. You don't have to have a fancy camera. Again, as complicated or as simple. But the point is just to get your message out.
And so you can use Ecamm app within your iPhone.
It's not within your iPhone, it's using the iPhone as your camera. So you would use your back camera, which is your better camera,
Mhm.
and use that as your camera. So my point is like you don't have to have a Sony, ZVE-10 or whatever, the latest and greatest is for content creators. You can just have your iPhone connected to your computer, have some kind of clean audio, and just go. And that's the other beauty of it. You can um, control things within the program, within the software to say you had an interview with somebody and their room was dark or they were off center. You can control it on your end to make them look as good and sound as good as you possibly can. So, if that's the other thing, you want to do a podcast and you're worried about, oh, my guest doesn't have a microphone or they don't have a fancy camera, it's fine. Have them come in and you can do some adjustments on your end. And that's a huge thing because not everybody, is set up to have lights and cameras and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I can even see a part of the skill set that I offer is meditation and showing those meditations in a more kind of relaxed environment and lighting.
Yeah. Over because that's how you and I met. We we studied meditation and got trained in that. And so over the pandemic, I was using Ecamm to do these live meditation sessions with people. And I just kind of like, dimmed the lights and made it kind of calm. And you can bring music in. I had music in, and um, just I just went live. And if you can use Zoom with Ecamm. So then now you can see people. You can, actually see the Zoom call within Ecamm. They just really integrated that recently. So, but it was a nice thing because everybody was able to connect and breathe and relax because we needed to, and just have a little bit of community at that point. So Ecamm was the reason I was able to do that.
Yes, and you've been telling me for at least 2+ years, if not longer, to try to use the technology. And I keep saying, I'm almost there. But this little issue that I had with not getting it recorded, the master class, will be the final catalyst.
And fire
Yeah,
under
and exactly the fire I needed to be lit and do it. And for those who are listening, you may be aware that I have a meditation coaching background, but I met Lisa through our program during the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah. I often say to you, I think that saved both of us because it was that peace we needed at the time. And, you know, when I signed up, the pandemic hadn't happened when we signed up, if I remember correctly.
Well, no,
Um,
yeah, when we signed up, it had not, but the day it
yeah,
started was the day we went into lockdown.
it was the day we went into lockdown, and so it couldn't have come at a more perfect time, honestly. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I'm thankful for that. And
And,
it's useful. I use it a lot. You obviously use it, but I use it a lot with my clients because, sometimes if you're meeting with somebody, you've hired someone to consult with you, and you come into that meeting and something has happened just before. You're like, oh, and then so I'm listening and they're telling me this and telling me that. And I said, you know what? We're gonna we're gonna leave that at the door. Can I just sit? Like, can we just sit for 2 minutes and you just close your eyes and just breathe? And I like to take them through, the body awareness meditation that you just kind of track where you're feeling tension in your body. And I've had so many different responses to that, to the point, like I had one woman, she started crying and she's like, oh my gosh, I have not slowed down. I needed this. And so once you kind of clear the path, and you know this, Shilpa, once you clear the pathway, then people can get to what they're supposed to be doing. The ideas can flow, because they've gotten all that cook out of the way. I'm going to call it cook.
yeah, oh, no, we all need that, and that really does tie actually with this overall theme of energy awareness. Like, let's start with awareness. Let's start with um, becoming cognizant of where we're leaking our energy or where we're being drained. I've told you many times that when I'm at the height of my anxiety or stress, it's because I'm on overdrive. I'm like, all things need to get done. Where do I channel my energy? And if we don't have the right modalities or tools to become aware, then how do we do something about it?
Right, right. Yeah, and having those tools to, you know, fix and make that better and rectify the problem. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, so this is a good segue to the latter part of what I taught recently in my master class, and you are aware that I'm on a mission to help solopreneurs understand that they can streamline their lives to then reintegrate their why, rechannel that energy so that if you can be more creative, like you and I were discussing. We love podcasting, we love the conversations, but it can become not so lovely if we feel like it's a burden, if we feel drained. So going back to that, as a solopreneur and an entrepreneur who you've been on this journey for quite some time, maybe you could speak to how women can not only learn to become aware of their energy, but how they can manage it with tools like what you've been advocating for.
Yeah. You and I are on the same page because I too, with my clients, we go through a whole thing of looking at why you're doing what you're doing, why you want to do it, and what's the end goal. And sometimes we forget, or we're running from a playbook from when we were in our 20s or 30s of our why, but that doesn't apply to your 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's shifted. And it's a hard thing. And tell me if you experience it. It's a hard thing for people to sometimes sit down and be still and get in that mode of really figuring that out, or having the reality of, I thought this is why I wanted to do it, but it's not anymore. So now what? So again, you've got to get past, all of that. And I would say with the tools, one way you could use AI is like if you're just um, journaling, which is very important. You use it. I use it with my people. And say you're just journaling random thoughts. you can feed that into AI and say, hey, what if you look at this, what's the theme that keeps recurring here? What things should I be thinking about doing with all these different random thoughts I had? I mean, that's a use case. It's a very simple use case, but you could do that just to get your thoughts into one place. Then you take that and you can think about it from there. So, and then keep track of it in a journal or create a journal in Notion or create a journal, in Google Docs or whatever. So there's ways of using these things to integrate where you are in your life, what your thoughts are, because sometimes we think things and then we forget. And we have that aha, and then life happens, and you're like, "Gosh, what was that thing that was like so important?" So that's where these tools can come in handy of just keep, journal, keep those thoughts somewhere that you can access and get back to them. And then look at them, like go back and review them and what your end goal is, what where you're trying to get to from where you are. How do I get there? That's an AI question you can ask.
Yeah. So the
Yep.
way you described is you can have a dialogue because I do this very often. Just the other day, I was trying to come up with a way to frame something for my upcoming workshop, and I had other thoughts coming into my head. So I actually literally said that. I go, I've got a lot of different ideas going on in my head. Tell me what you think. It's like talking to a
Okay.
girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
I said, these are just random little ideas. And by the way, here's some research I've done. We're going to plug it in at the end. Maybe you can give me your top five points on where we
yeah.
could do this.
Yeah, to help you organize your thoughts. The other thing you could do is reverse engineer. So say you're trying to get to the point, you ask it, I want to do this. Can you ask me a list of questions that I need to answer before I feed it back to you? So reverse engineering, what I love about all this, it really makes your brain think about how to get to, where you're trying to get to. And so that's a beautiful way if you're not quite sure what you're trying to get to, have it ask you questions. I know people going for interviews have been using it to do a mock interview and ask it, pretend you're, act as a, how the prompts go, act as you're a blah, 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 blah. And I'm applying for this job. What possible questions might you ask me?
Yeah.
And so these questions spit out, and then you can think about that because maybe that's something you didn't think about. We go into interviews or we go into meetings thinking one thing, but this allows you to kind of think outside of the box because maybe a question or topic or point will come out that, God, I didn't think about that. I find that happens to me a lot of that. I didn't think of that angle. Oh, that's cool. Now I can take that and use my brain power to make it work for me. And that's the secret sauce, I think, with it.
Yeah, I recently spoke to someone else who uses Notion, and she calls it her second brain. And I
Yeah. There's a
believe,
guy that, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and she mentioned there's some guy who wrote
The
about
guy,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. The whole second brain thing. And then there's another guy, Thomas Frank, who's like the Notion, wizard. And so, um, yeah, you can learn so much online from various people, but then don't try to do everything. Like, you don't have to try to copy what they're doing or learn everything. Take what you need, like, see what's out there, take what you need and use it. If you need to adjust it, then you find something new. And I think that's the whole thing about overwhelm with this is everybody thinks they have to learn everything. They have to know it all. That's like with Ecamm. Everybody thinks I need to know how to do. No, you just need to know what you need to know to get you started and to get something good out there.
Yeah,
Could be simple.
absolutely. And everyone needs that uniqueness that you offer. And I want a lot of people to understand and have that insight or inspiration that these tools can truly give you that third act or second act path.
Absolutely. And you're never too old to learn these tools. I get fussy about that. I'm like, no, you know what? Even if you learn a little bit, you've learned something. You know what I mean? So get the age thing out of the way. I really honestly don't want to hear it. So not to be rude, but
Oh,
yeah,
no, I agree. I mean, and goes back to some more philosophical slash mindset thinking, but um, our beliefs are just beliefs. And if you keep thinking it, they might become beliefs. But this old school notion of you hit a certain age and these list of horrible things happen, or the
You're
list
supposed to
are.
just stop and not participate in life anymore. Like, no, we're
No,
not doing that.
no. I mean, you call the shots. You get to manifest your own
Yeah,
reality.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. I hope I can bring you back because I really, really enjoy this, and I also
Yeah,
believe
it's a
my
pleasure.
audience will enjoy it in terms of the pragmatics as well as the inspiration.
Yes, it was a pleasure being here, always.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.